Welcome to the first ever recording of the podcast.
First?
You are the first. We needed to start off with a bang.
Thank you. What an honor to be number one.
You always are number one. Okay, so I want to start off by asking you, what is something good that has happened in your life that you want to share?
I'll keep it simple. Well, this happened to me and Javi. We were walking on the street like a month ago, and we've been in like a very money manifesting mindset.
Wait, say that again 3 times fast, girl. Money manifesting.
And we found $250 cash on the sidewalk. I know. And we were like, whoa. And then, what's funny is the other night, this wasn't me, this was him, but he was walking the dog and he was like, you're never going to believe this. And he sends me a picture of $100 bill. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? He's like, this was just blowing down the street. And I'm like, that's crazy. But then he got home and he realized it was fake. But I was like, the universe has a sense of humor. And so we put it on our fridge, the fake $100 bill. So now we see it all the time. Everything's good. I love my life. I love New York. The weather's getting better. That's something good.
Really? That's what you ended off on? You're like, we found a suitcase full of cash. We found a fake $100 bill. I love living in New York. The weather. Yeah, that's what I'm going to land on.
When you live here, because you've lived in Chicago, like you give a shit about the weather when you live here in a way that you absolutely do not in California. It brings me so much joy that it is like warm, sunny. Like I'm going to go take a ferry ride later today. Going to go sit outside.
Yeah, I get that.
So I feel like it's a different city in the summer because all these things are available to you that aren't always available to you.
So the reason I brought you on and wanted to be a guest, you have had quite a few transitions in your life. And one of the major ones is being a dancer and moving into, I'm going to say like corporate world, so to speak, right? From a dancer to non-dancer world and how you navigated that transition in your life. You went from dancing and to casting and then fully leaning into your identity as a writer. So what was your first job?
So I worked at a place called The Little Gym. And I taught gymnastics classes to toddlers and like hosted birthday parties. It was honestly really hard work.
Yeah.
I would never do that now, but it was fun. It was really fun. And then my first job as a dancer was a pilot for a Disney Channel show that never came to be.
Do you remember the name of it?
I think it was called like Madison High or something. That was like the working titles.
Okay.
I was 19. I looked like I was 13.
Mhm.
It was a bunch of high school kids dancing at some big outdoor space at some high school in the valley. It was really fun.
Share with us how you got into dance.
I wasn't like all the other girls who start doing ballet when they're like 2 years old and grow up doing it forever. I got into dance in high school because I was a big troublemaker. Spent like a year and a half. I had spent like a year and a half away in treatment at various treatment centers for a lot of behavioral issues and drug issues that I was struggling with. And so when I came back, I was starting at a public high school. My dad said, you have to choose an extracurricular outside of school, and then you have to choose like a school organized sport. So I chose cross country. Oof. Only because I'm not sporty, and I just figured all you have to do is run. And then I chose dance. And so I was like running cross country. I would do like 5-hour practices, and my dad would pick me up and he would drop me off at dance class for like 4 or 5 hours. And then after a few months, I was just so burnt out and I fucking hated running. I hated it so much. And I was bad at it. Like I didn't realize that you could be bad at running. I was so bad at it.
I feel like I can confirm the fact that you're bad at running. Like there's you and then there's your sister who like runs all the time. And there's like
ran a half marathon really casually a week ago. My brother runs ultra marathons, so like 100-mile races in 24 hours. I don't know. I miss that gene.
And you run across the street. That's about it.
Yes. I told my dad, I was like, I fucking hate running, but I love dance. Can I please just like commit more hours to dance and quit the cross country team? So he said yes. And then I just threw myself into dance, and that was my life all of high school. Like I loved it. I knew I didn't want to go to college. I was barely able to graduate from high school. And so there was never any other option on the table. It was like, I'm going to dance. I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to be a dancer. And I auditioned for the Edge Scholarship Program, which was this great program that no longer exists, unfortunately, but was a really established thing. And my ballet teacher at my dance studio had told me about it. She taught at Edge. And so she introduced me to Bill Prudich, who was the director of the studio, and I auditioned, and thank God I got in because I really had no backup plan. Yeah. And so, I mean, and it was a really tough year. It's hard being that age. It's hard being in an industry that is so competitive. In a lot of ways, it did prepare me. I don't think I would have had the career that I had if I didn't do it, just because it set me on the path. That was sort of the story, the origin story of dance.
Miss Origin Story. And for those of you who don't know, the Edge was a dance studio in the heart of Hollywood that had a scholarship. It was like a year-long, almost conservatory intensive. Like a lot of the teachers were working in the industry as choreographers and dancers. So it was very, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like something that enabled you to be very connected to the industry once you were finished.
Yeah, because it has a reputation. So anyone that knows that you did the Edge Scholarship is going to know that you are trained, that you know, are a viable candidate to hire
Yeah.
for a gig. And it connected me. I mean, so many people who are still a big part of my life and my community are people that I met through that. So yeah, it was definitely a cornerstone to my life. So I was really interested being in LA. I wanted to go on tour with Justin Bieber. I wanted to be doing commercials and TV shows. I thought that that was all that I wanted to do. And I wasn't interested in musical theater at all. And then when I auditioned for this Barbie musical, it felt very random, but I got the job, and one of my very, very best friends also got hired, and it was going to take us all around Southeast Asia, which I had never been to. I hadn't even heard of some of the countries that were on the tour schedule. I remember at the time I was 22, I was so young, and I was like, I don't want to do this dumb job. Like, I want to go on tour with whoever, fill in the blank, or,
Yeah.
it didn't feel cool. And I ran into this incredible woman that I had met through a job that was like the wardrobe lady. She was this breast cancer survivor. Like, we had just connected on the job, and I ran into her randomly when I was sort of on the fence about, do I want to accept this offer to do this contract? And she was like, you know what? Not everything has to be Shakespeare. And I swear that shit stuck with me. I still think about it all the time. And I'm so glad that I had that run in with her and that I had that moment, because I think that was sort of what made me say, yeah, she's right. Not everything needs to be that. And I am going to say yes to this job. And similar to the Edge, like that opportunity led me to so many other things and experiences that I just would not have had otherwise.
I remember when you told me that when you're younger, you kind of have this perception of the entertainment industry is like, I only want to audition for like the fiercest roles. And then you're like, nah, actually, bitch, you can make a lot of money singing for Mickey Mouse, girl. Job is a job. Going back to what you talked about, becoming a dancer really wasn't necessarily something that you're like, I grew up wanting to do. You're like, I chose this extracurricular activity over running. And then you fell in love with it and you enjoyed it and you took this path. Then there's that moment of, hey, I realized a job is a job. And you worked. You worked for quite some time. You being a dancer, we all always saw you as a dancer. And I say we, but like I met you after Barbie, you know, and we became best friends. It was very instant. It was instant coffee, honey. Just add water. Good to go.
I like him.
Walk me through that transition from not wanting to be in the industry and what that moment was, or those few moments where you found clarity to leave the industry and put it behind you.
Like you said, I was working, a fair amount for maybe the better part of 10 years, but it was hard. I wasn't part of that 1% of people who was just like, had that momentum and was just in the in crowd. And I think a lot of aspects of the entertainment industry felt like high school to me. And high school was so challenging socially for me that it just started to feel like really yucky all the time. Ironically, like the year where I was doing the best, like I was finally working with the people that I'd always dreamed of working with. I did a feature film. I was getting jobs like fairly consistently, and I was so miserable and I was so riddled with anxiety. And I remember I did one job with one particular choreographer that I had looked up to so much, and then I just felt like the illusion got shattered. And so I kind of had this moment of being like, I don't want to do this anymore. But then I also didn't want to feel like I was a failure or I was quitting. And I think that's like a really challenging place to get to when you're a creative, because you want to feel like you can go out on your own terms, but then you don't know when it's sincerely like, no, I'm actually done with this, or when you just feel like you're defeated and you need to keep pushing. And so I think that was like a question mark for a while for me. And I kind of just kept doing it because I didn't know what else to do. And then I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go to Thailand for a couple of months. Did that, did my yoga teacher training. Cause what else do you do? I mean, I didn't have a college education. I was bartending. I didn't know what there was to fall back on.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I was like, I'm done. I'm just simply not doing it anymore. I would run into people and they'd be like, what have you been up to? What are you doing? Because that's always the conversation in LA. And I was just very matter of fact, like, nothing. I think it really disturbed people that I was just so willing to be like, yeah, I'm doing nothing. I'm bartending and I'm teaching yoga. And that's it.
Yeah.
I'm striving for nothing right now.
This is like the pivotal moment. Going off, having that clarity, I'm done, and not having, I don't know if it's necessarily like a mindset or not having the intention of like, I need to figure everything out, right? Like, not that like fight or flight, like, scarcity, I guess, mindset. That sounds so woo-woo. Like, I have a scarcity mindset. Now I have a money manifesting mindset. But really, like, being able to say, I'm actively going to do nothing. Ooh, yin yang. Up is down and down is up. You said I'm actively going to do nothing. You came back and you're like, I'm bartending and I'm teaching yoga and I'm actively doing nothing. What came next?
It wasn't that I had one foot in the door still, but I did still feel like A, I need to make money, and B, what else am I doing? So I was doing this for a few months and I took a job body doubling on this Disney shoot. And long story short, the job was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. I had to do all of this stuff underwater. There was like a platform that was rigged underwater. I was wearing like 25 layers of clothes and a cloak and like weighted boots. So I would jump in the water. It was the craziest thing. I had a purple wig that was glued to my head. I had to jump into the water and I had to sink down because I was wearing these really heavy boots. I would sink down to the platform. And then there were certified scuba instructors underneath the water giving me oxygen. It was the craziest. It was the craziest day. It was horrible.
Cut to not everything is Shakespeare. Sometimes it'll be Avatar, World of the Water, or whatever.
Yes. And because I was already so like over the industry,
Yeah.
like that day was just so brutal for me. And
Yeah.
I told them that I had a heart out because I had to go bartend.
Yeah.
And they ended up needing to keep me longer. And it was this whole thing. And so I left and I'm driving to my bartending shift. I'm like picking wig glue out of my hairline. I'm just like, what am I doing? And I got a phone call from a friend of mine, just serendipitous. And he was like, a friend that I know through Edge. And he was like, hey, you might not be interested in this, but I have a friend who's a casting director and she's looking to hire somebody for a few months. She needs somebody who has, a dance background to be a casting associate. It would be in an office. It would be like 5 days a week. It'd be, 40 hours a week. I don't know if that's anything that you're interested in. And before he could even finish, I was like, yes. Like, yes, I don't care.
I just picture you like wet, just completely wet, being like shivering, driving down the...
Actually, in some ways it fell into my lap, but I also think that that's maybe not giving myself enough acknowledgement of allowing myself to be really comfortable in that space of discomfort and that space of in between and that space of not knowing and just allowing myself to just be and trusting that something would come. Like, I think it's a delicate balance of trusting that something will come and also not just sitting on your ass and expecting the world to show up for you in all of the ways that you want it to. But I'm so wired to strive and to like death grip my dreams that I think it was really important for me to have the experience of stepping away from some of those like natural inclinations and just letting myself exist and trust that I would find something and that something would find me. And it did. So, and that was like over 6 years ago now.
For the listeners, Candice is a little itty bitty. The picture in my head is you with these heavy boots sinking to the bottom of a pool. I can't get it out of my head because you're so little. Just be like, boom, boom, boom. That shit is cracking.
It was horrible.
But also give yourself credit for being like, that's it. You did the work to be like, I'm going to go, I'm going to leave, I'm going to come back, I'm going to do nothing, trusting like the process. That moment was like you being like, I am done with this fucking bullshit. And Miss Universe was like, I've been waiting, girl. I've been waiting. I got something for you.
Even though I was very resolute in not wanting to continue to pursue that career path, it was still really hard and really heartbreaking. And, even up until the last like couple of years, even though I haven't been involved in it, It's been like a real grieving process because it was such a part of my identity and it was such a love that became something so painful. Like by the end, I didn't love it anymore. And that made me so sad because I was like, man, this thing that I really thought I was going to love for the rest of my life, like a relationship with a person, I don't feel that way anymore. And how can I reconcile that? Like you just find yourself wanting to make it the way that it was. And I think the second you can accept that it's not the way that it is or that it was anymore, and that's okay. And, even allowing that to come back into your life in some kind of way, which is a whole other chapter that I sort of feel like I'm in now.
Ladies and gentlemen, theys and thems, this is why we have Candice Fox on this episode. And that is one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is that as you navigated into the casting world and let's say leaving dance behind for the sake of the conversation, you always somehow found a way to stay connected to your creativity. So to your point and what you said about grieving and or navigating and maybe accepting that that isn't going to be what it is anymore, how did you navigate that?
Well, I think honestly, the pandemic really helped because I was already in that space, but then things really halted. And that's when we decided to move to New York. So I'd grown up very close to LA. I made the move to LA, grew up in a suburb. I didn't grow up in the city, but the stakes didn't always feel very high for me. I had a lot of friends that had moved from Ohio, from Michigan, from all over the country that were like, this has to work for me. And I'm far away from my family. I didn't always necessarily feel that same way. But moving to New York kind of gave me, not that I was running away from my identity, because I really do feel like I had done a lot of work to make that choice and start to move on in my life. But moving here has been really great because I've been here for over 3 years now. And I think I'm really starting to step onto a new creative path. What I will say about it that's really interesting is like, so I'm a writer, which is something that I'm just now becoming comfortable even saying out loud,
Yeah.
and like owning, but I'm a writer and I'm writing a book and I've written a lot of essays and I love to write. It's something that I'm transitioning into. I took a writing class last year. First day, everyone's going around the table doing their little intro. And people are like, I have my MFA from Sarah Lawrence. I have my MFA from Columbia. I have my creative writing, this and that. And I got really like in my head and down on myself because I'm like, well, I didn't even fucking go to college. I was a dancer for 10 years, which is such a misunderstood job. I think they're like, so what does that mean? And unless
You're like heavy boots and a pool girl.
I'm like shit that you could not even imagine. I feel like sometimes that was hard for me, but I've had to reframe it in this way recently where I'm like, no, it's actually really interesting that I have such a unique lens, that I didn't follow this path that everybody who's a writer and pursuing writing maybe for the majority has. I had a whole different life and creative endeavor that I pursued for many years, and that makes me different. And I think that that's interesting, and that's no shade to anybody that has been writing since they went to college and did get their MFA. Like, good for
Yeah.
fucking you. You were light
Yeah.
years ahead of me in many ways.
Yeah.
But that's okay because it's not
Yeah.
like I sat around for, the better part of the last 15 years doing nothing. I was just doing something different. And now I'm doing this, and it's new, and that feels kind of scary, but it also feels kind of exciting when I just let myself be a beginner. Like, I think being a beginner is hard. And even though I was a beginner, I was a late start as a dancer. Again, I started in my adolescence, but I didn't have that experience, that reference point of being a beginner for quite a long time. And it's hard. Like, I think it requires a lot of humility and it requires a lot of practice. Just because you're naturally inclined at something doesn't mean you don't have to show up and do the work. And I've just been kind of in that space as of late.
Come on, beginner's mindset. I know, obviously, as friends, like what it took to really step into saying I'm a writer, which for the record, everybody, I have been saying it for quite some time because you're a fantastic writer. I've read your stuff and it's so true. It's that idea that like you have such a unique story and the way you write and the way you are is so exciting. Do you feel that having this other creative outlet has helped you mourn and grieve the dancer identity industry art as a whole?
Yeah, I think in some ways it has. And I'm sure like as I continue to move forward in my career and hopefully find some success, that be like affirming in a way where it will contribute to that sense. But it's weird. I didn't do it right away. I kind of buried it. And I think that's what a lot
Yeah.
of people do with grieving. You know, you're just sort of in denial for a long time. And it wasn't really, honestly, until a couple of years ago that I was like, oh, I don't think I've acknowledged this pain. And even though I did leave on my own terms, and even though I did find this other path, and even though I am doing something creative for myself now that I've always wanted to do, it still hurts. And I think you have to acknowledge that it exists. And I didn't do that for a long time. I was just like, whatever, I don't want to do that anymore. And I found casting and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and everything's good. But there was like a moment a couple years ago where I was like, oh, I have to look at this. And I don't know if my writing has necessarily helped with that process. In some ways, I guess it has because being a dancer was my identity. And without it, it was like, well, who am I? And what is my value? I don't find a lot of value in working in casting, not because I don't care. I
Yeah.
care. And I enjoy my job fine enough. I feel very fortunate. I get a lot of opportunities to travel. I get to talk to people from all over the world, which I love. But I don't really like over identify with my career in the way that I think a lot of other people do. And so I'm still getting comfy with the writer stuff. I'm still I'm still getting there, and it's baby steps. I think just first and foremost, just being able to acknowledge it and say it out loud and to talk confidently about the things that I'm working on. Like
Uh,
I'm like telling people now when they're asking me what's going on, I'm like, I'm writing a book
yes.
because I am.
Yes. I'm really glad that you brought that up because it's actually like a core memory in my mind. Like I was talking to you on the phone walking on Broadway, I think. And it was like just the idea that like you can have a job that pays the bills, enables you to do the things that you actually enjoy, which I think is really hard. And I say this because I'm speaking about myself, right? Like it's being to do something so much fun and then have a job that's like,
A job.
it's a job.
Miserable. I'm not like
It's
working
that.
hours a week where I'm like, that is not where I'm at. But I'm also not like, this is my dream job and I love it and everything about it's perfect and this is all that I care about.
Yes, and you were the one that really solidified that in my head. And it was one of those moments where it was like, if Candice can do it, I could do it too. I can change this perspective to say, this is my job. It's giving me opportunities. I'm learning a lot. You know, whatever it is, it pays the bills. I'm good at it. I could see a doctor and still have this creative outlet. So I'm really glad that you named that. That is to me the core of what I want. What it was today. It was like you made this transition. You did this thing and you went into casting, paid your bills, and acknowledging this identity that you are a writer, you're still getting your feet wet, so to speak, to really awesome, and you're writing a book. So literally now we're on chapter 3. What's next? What is next?
I don't know. I will say this, like, I don't want to continue to do casting for the rest of my existence, but I'm allowing myself to use what happened 6 years ago as a reference point to be like, all right, well, know that and just let yourself be in a space of being open and see what comes next. Career wise, no clue, but can't wait to see what it is. In terms of creatively, I'm writing this book. I'm almost done with my first draft. I'm also working on a one-woman show that I am hoping to perform in New York in the fall, which is titled Eulogy for a Living Parent. And it's basically all about growing up with an alcoholic parent, estrangement, and the grieving process. Again, like grief isn't just one form and one circumstance. You can grieve a lot of things, and it's not just necessarily a person who's left this earth, but there's all types of grieving. And I think that estrangement is a really misunderstood thing, and it's something that I feel not passionate about because that's sad. But I care about illuminating it. I care about helping people understand it more and also helping people who maybe are experiencing themselves feel seen. Because I think that's at the end of the day why I want to write and want to create, not just for me to be like, look at how good I am at this thing. I want to connect with people. I care a lot about connecting. So whether that's as a dancer on a stage, connecting with the little cuties screaming Barbie, you know, or connecting with people who are gonna read an essay of mine or read this book that hopefully gets a big publishing deal and is on Reese Witherspoon's book club. You heard it here.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
I love that. What is the title of this chapter of your life that you are living?
I just turned 33, so I'm in my year of enlightenment.
Oh shit.
And I do feel like
Wait, is that your Jesus year? Is that the same thing? Okay. Crucify me.
Yes. Amen. It's the year of blossoming. I feel like I was in this pot. I had this conversation with my therapist, like right around my birthday, where we did this whole visualization. I was just sort of describing to her. I was like, I feel like I'm in this pot and my roots are growing and like they're bursting out and like they're going to break the pot. It's like becoming so I can't continue to live in the space and the mindset that I've been living in because it's just gotten to be so uncomfortable. Something's got to give. And it's sort of that thing of like getting sick of your own shit. I just got sick of the story that I'd been holding on to. I think was a story from my life as a dancer. A lot of insecurity and a lot of feeling like not good enough. And I don't want to carry that story anymore. And I don't want to tell myself that story anymore. And in that process, like you have to sort of let things get really messy and uncomfortable for a second. But then you know, it's like you repot a plant. And yeah, maybe while you're repotting it, there's like, especially for me in New York, I'm repotting in my apartment with like fucking plastic wrapped down. Like, but it gets a little messy. And then I put it in its new pot and then I clean everything up and then I water it and I wait for it to fucking grow. That doesn't answer your question at all.
I got two titles in there, bitch. Blossom and break the pot.
I like that.
Bitch, you're growing. And honestly, I could see it in you too. Like there's something a little different about you. You said, I love my life. Like you got the peace and you're blossoming and you broke that terracotta pot. Break the pot.
I think like having the freedom to be where I'm at and not feel like I have to strive all the time and not feel like I have to like look for something to fix all the time. It's like so liberating just to be like, actually, I'm doing really fucking well.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing well. I'm not doing all the things I want to do. There's still shit on my list. Like I've got goals, but I'm doing well and that's okay. Just be with it.
That is so interesting because it's very similar to me. Sometimes I'm like, I don't need to grow every single day. Like actually like that's what peace is. Like things are fine. My cat is sleeping right there and there's no danger. I'm fed and I have water and friends and technology and it's okay.
I think when you can allow yourself to be in that space of being like, yeah, there's more I want to do with my life, but I don't know what that looks like. And right now, everything feels good and I don't need to have all the answers. And like trying to figure that out is a waste of my time. I think if I can just like do what feels good now, be happy for the things that I have, be grateful for the things that I have, then whatever will come, will come. It's not going to change.
Yes, bitch. She's new. She's new, girl. She's new. She broke the pot and she is blossoming.
I did. It feels so good.
What's one thing that you want to share as we wrap up our time together?
I always think about like what I want to say to 19-year-old me.
What would you tell your 19-year-old self?
First of all, that I want to tell her I love her. I mean, it's kind of similar to what we were just saying, like to just let yourself be. Just let it all be as it is, because it won't be this way forever.
Come on, cultivating being. Yes, bitch. Okay. Hey, thank you for being the star that you are. You always know how to incorporate creativity wherever you go, and I admire that.
Well, I love you and I admire you, and I'm so thankful and I'm so excited for you.